What's going on, everybody? Welcome again, MADcast. It's your boy Matt and your boy Dave.
Hello.
That's not. You don't sound like.
Hello.
You don't sound like it's your boy. You know, you gotta get hood.
Don't get hood.
I said hello.
Don't do that.
Not that.
Don't
I like
Alright.
that though. West Side.
It's your boy.
West Side.
Back again with our third chair, Nicholi.
Right.
Hello.
How you
Fourth
doing,
chair.
sir?
I am Nicholi. I'm not a fourth chair.
He's never been a fourth chair.
We
There's
don't have
only
four.
three.
There's only 3 chairs, but still, I think we all consider him 4.
Consider you a jerk.
Wow. Not cool. Not
How did that whole conversation start?
No, I
the onus is on us to
the
force their
onus is
hand.
on not only us to stop buying microtransactions, the company to stop making transactions, but it's also on us to stop supporting microtransactions in the wake of that. And if we're not going to do that, then we as a culture should not be allowed to bitch.
But that's sort of an oxymoron. By bitching, we are, in essence, taking up a political stand against this. This is how we collectively protest this damaging type of system. So individually, the way we choose to protest this, and as more individuals join us, we become a collective, but we do it by not buying and by bitching.
Yes,
So-
and that
Dave.
That's the solution. It's the problem.
I totally do get where you're coming from, and I understand your point exactly. However, as the gaming community in general, a lot of what you hear and a lot of what you see is this virulent rally against microtransactions. And yet every year games with microtransactions break sales records. Not just for the microtransactions in the game itself, but also like just sales-wise, which means more and more people are buying the game.
That's
And
equivalent to saying that heroin sales keep going up every year.
No,
Is it not?
heroin's.
Isn't that kind of your point? Is that these games are specifically made to be addictive?
Well, in part, that these microtransactions are designed in the same way nicotine, cigarette sales are, casinos are. I mean, casinos do all sorts of manipulative
Yeah, I don't
things
know
to
how-
keep people in the
So
building.
it's similar to saying
Heroin is just
unchecked. I don't know how these cigarette sales just keep going up every year.
No. I don't think it is, because so far 3 things that you have named are heroin, which is super highly addictive, cigarettes, which are super highly addictive, and gambling, which is super highly addictive. And I don't believe that video games are on the same level of any of those. They're an entertainment experience that you can choose to sink time to, or you can choose not to sink time into.
Well, so is gambling, but specifically in these systems, they are using the same. Even if you don't say, this is not gambling on the level that poker or blackjack is, okay, fair enough. It's not. You're right. I mean, you can go waste $20,000 overnight. But the important thing is that what they are intentionally designing their systems, these microtransaction systems, to affect the same brain's, areas, to affect the same neurotransmitter levels, to affect it in the same way that gambling does. It is, by all intents and purposes, the same rush you get from gambling.
It's
So
the
they
same
are,
rush you get from eating ice cream, too.
No, it's not.
not.
Very different.
Endorphin release.
It's not.
It's not. It's very different. There's a reason that gambling is so highly addictive. It's like among the big 3 in terms of highly addictive behaviors. Whereas ice cream is certainly addictive. I mean, you certainly get endorphin.
Not in the addictive sense. I just meant like at a base chemical level. I thought you were equating gambling to what is it? Dopamine, really? Not
Dopamine, serotonin, gabapentin, but all sorts of neurotransmitters. But not only that, but what neurons these are actually firing on, what part of the brain, the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, in terms of where these brain, it's a very primitive and very like base instinct of people to get a rush from gambling, and it's preyed upon by these developers to incite the same type of feeling that makes gambling so addictive. And I mean, when you walk into a casino, you understand that you are walking into a place that is designed to take your money. Like,
yes.
this is you're kind of accepting the risk.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
When you're a 16-year-old kid playing a game with microtransactions in it, you don't have the awareness to understand that what is happening is you are being preyed upon to get a rush out of these loot systems that will make you much less inhibited to the higher thinking that would stop you from doing it. And it's intentional. And to the larger point, Activision announced its sales for last year. They made $6.5 billion. $3.5 billion of that was microtransactions, of their whole sales. Half their sales came from microtransactions.
And that is a crazy amount.
Yeah.
And that practice, that I was not aware of, so that's new information to me. So that does change my opinion on it.
Good.
But I will say that then if that's the case, then the onus is on us as the gaming community in general to stop buying those games.
Absolutely.
And for more people to get well aware of this information.
True.
But they won't do it. And do you know why?
People are lazy.
People are lazy.
I think it's an interesting topic. And the philosophy that you're sort of flirting with, although not really, because I think at the end you kind of agree with the idea that, I mean, we both kind of end up in the same place, that we have to have a collectivist action to encourage these companies and institutions to change their way they behave, and that is done by kind of guerrilla, grassroots movements to stop it. Although, then again, when we look at, so if you want to equate it to the banking meltdown, that wasn't addressed by a grassroots movement. That was addressed by government at the highest levels, with our representatives choosing to address it the way they did. And only years later did we actually see a real movement for collective grassroots action to kind of really persuade the government to change, and they still didn't. So I think on some level this has to be done. It certainly, the onus is in part on the community, and we'll move it back to gaming.
On the community, not on me. I love microtransactions. I use them all the time.
Do you?
I not all the time, but if I download a new phone game and I play it for more than a week, I'll drop $10 in it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been playing a game, Path of Exile, which is this free-to-play Diablo-style game.
Yep, really? I've played Path of Exile.
Have you?
Yep.
Oh, I kind of really got into it.
Is it on, what is it on?
It's on Xbox now.
Oh, it's on Xbox now.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And it's free-to-play.
Oh, that's awesome.
And all the microtransactions on there are all cosmetic, even though it's free-to-play. And, it's just very consumer-friendly. And so in that game, I put a lot of time in it. So, of course, I'm going to support it with paying for stuff. I want to support the developers. It's a fair system.
That's why I like League of Legends so much.
Yeah, League of Legends is another good example. That's a perfect style.
Nicholas, fuck you guys, stop talking about gaming.
No. I mean, no. Do you not? You said League of Legends in the past tense.
Yeah,
he doesn't play it anymore
because of your account getting erased.
No. No. I had started a new account. I leveled it all the way to 30. And then I started my ranked games, and I was just like, I don't enjoy this anymore.
It felt like a process.
It was a chore. It's such a long grind from level 1 to level 30, and then when you get there, it's like, oh great, now I get to be miserable half the time I play.
Yep.
Everybody in that community, not everybody
really
in that community,
bad.
but the community is so toxic.
It's about the worst reputation of
it's
communities
the worst
in gaming.
And I understand why it is.
Yeah, worse than Call of Duty, probably, in terms of reputation.
I understand why it is, because I was there. Mm-hmm. Because if you have a bad game of Call of Duty, it's 7 minutes, or you can just drop out and start a new game. Right. In League of Legends, you can't do that, and the games last 40 minutes.
Yep.
So if someone on your team just decides, it does really stupid things in your mind, you're just wasting my time. We're gonna lose this game now. It's gonna be 40 minutes of me for a loss.
Yeah.
Does that hurt your ranking?
Losing.
Yeah. Huh?
Does losing hurt your ranking?
If you play ranked.
So if you're in a ranked game and you're playing with other people, like solo queue, and you lose,
right?
That hurts you.
That hurts you. Yeah.
So like another player's doing something.
What's called LP. So I'm sorry. Yeah, LP. So basically there's divisions. There's bronze, silver, gold,
right?
Platinum, diamond, master, challenger, all the way up. There's 0.1% of the gaming community is in challenger.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Like pro players.
Right. Each of those divisions has bronze 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So this is the grind. This is If someone's doing something stupid... I mean, there's a whole lot of motivation on you to be angry at that player, because that player is actively hurting you. Yes. And if you equate time with your own time with like a monetary value, this person is actively damaging your own, amount of like commitment you make to this thing.
And it's not their fault. They're just not good.
What can you do? Like,
they're just not good at the game. Yeah, and that's okay.
Sure,
but at the same time, moment, it makes you violently angry.
Yeah.
So that's why I got my first account banned, because I was just spewing hateful shit at people.
How often would you just curse people out? It'd be terrible.
I would try and be more funny with it than just be like, "Fucking you suck, dude." I would. What
was a go-to for you?
Would you usually initiate? Would you like someone is playing really bad and it's really annoying you? Would you say something to start, or are you more responding?
No, like if everybody on my team was doing bad, I like to say that Noah's Ark couldn't carry these animals.
That's funny. Would you often get a laugh from that one?
From the other team, yeah, and then my team would be like, "Oh, reported." Okay,
really?
Oh, instantly.
Well, they have no sense of humor.
As soon as you criticize someone, they're reporting you, because it's just like that's their recourse, and now you've initiated it.
It seems like this game has tried to address its own bad community very poorly with like these reported functions.
No, like,
but that seems to make things worse. Well, all right. So Destiny has addressed it by changing the skill board at the end so that they don't show personal stats in the same way like Overwatch does. Overwatch doesn't show, like a Call of Duty endgame menu.
Right. So you can't see statistically how bad someone is.
Right. They're only going to show, in Overwatch specifically, they only show like accomplishments of players.
Okay.
So like you don't really, you'll know when a Mercy is playing bad or something, but it's effective in not having the Call of Duty end game where, you have a 13-year-old kid saying, "Oh, fuck you fucking went 2-10 or whatever," know, and that happens a lot. And Overwatch is very much designed to not have that happen.
And the fucked up part is that the information is still trackable. So there are websites dedicated where you can go to a video games website and type in someone's name and be like, "Oh, wow, you're terrible all the time." Mm-hmm. Like, it's not uncommon in League of Legends to use a thing called op.gg and look up someone's summoner name and then be like, "Oh, wow, you lost 17 out of your last 20 games. How bad are you?"
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. That's really invasive.
And deep and cutting. Yeah.
I'll tell you, one time in Destiny, I usually don't get involved in any sort of negative back and forth with people ever. If they send me some, hate mail or something, I usually have fun with it and fuck with them. But I remember I one time played a game and it was first game of the day and I played poorly, and not terribly, but not good. And so one of my players on my own team sent me this "Dude, you fucking suck. Stop playing the game. Fuck yourself. Die. Whatever." And they
always end that way with "fuck yourself and die."
They're not creative. So it's
KYS, kill yourself.
Yeah, it's some combination of these kind of tropes, but for some reason it really got to me. So I went and played the next game like as hard as I could. I wasn't in the same lobby as this guy, but I went and played another game right away, and I played as hard as I could, and I did incredible. I went 30-5, really, really good game with whatever. I had great stats. So then I messaged him with my screenshot of my game after that, and then I did it another 2 times with straight away.
Oh,
and then
God.
I specifically screenshotted the screen to show the timestamp, so I knew that this game happened right after the first one.
Yeah.
And I went into this whole long thing where I committed an hour to just proving that I'm a good player.
To prove this fucking guy.
This guy, I have no idea who he is. And
did he ever respond?
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, that's good. Sorry about that." So, that was nice. I got a sorry about that.
Wow. You got a sorry about that. That's
That's a big accomplishment.
I think that's the biggest Oh,
Yeah,
wow,
I mean,
you're
that's all you
right.
could ever hope for.
That the internet can provide.
Right, that's the best. But it was so like nonchalant and like he was just slipping. Like, oh, okay. Like he had forgotten what had happened. Like, oh yeah, oh, I'm sorry about that. And
Wow.
I had devoted all this emotional, like, I was so angry and just like I have to prove.
How
this
much
guy.
did the sorry about that deflate you?
Oh, totally. Like after that, after I devoted my entire like being to being upset about this for an hour and getting back at him, as soon as he said that, I was like, don't worry about it. I was like, that's fine, dude.
Did you respond to him then again after that?
We had like a few back and forth where we kind of were friendly.
Really?
Yeah. So it kind of
Because he respected you.
You made a pal.
yeah, just because
I got permanently banned.
You did, but I never did this type of stuff.
There
that
were
you did.
also different games, right? Yours was Destiny, correct?
Yeah, and so it's a little bit, his is a lot more social in that way.
I
But
can
Destiny,
type directly to people,
Right.
whereas he
What-
has to like.
What for
message.
you
Yeah.
is one of the worst things you have said on a game?
yeah. Have you ever gone really overboard? And
Have you used racial slurs?
No,
Okay.
no,
How
never.
about derogatory, like?
No, I've
a little bit more creative and smarter.
I've told someone I can't believe a disabled person can play this game,
Okay.
but I used disabled person.
You,
Now
did
refunds.
you didn't use the R word?
I did not. I swear to God, I did not. I thought it made it funnier that I used disabled person because I wasn't specific.
That's true.
Technically, that guy could have no hands, and if he's still playing, that's incredible.
And it also grants a level of like credulity. Like you really are saying, "Oh, you must be disabled. That's great, dude."
Oh, that's
exactly.
true.
Yeah.
You can sell it that way
Yeah.
since it's typing.
Like if you're just saying, "Fuck you," no, that's like
No, I've never like because that stuff will get you like instantly.
really they go.
Chat banned. Like they'll just
Okay,
take away
chat
your
banned.
chat. My stuff was always like idiot. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like what? Why would you?
What's one of the worst you've received?
I bet you have some bad ones.
I've kill yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll burn your fucking house down. Was one that I remember specifically because I was like, that takes a level of like real.
Yeah.
Like
It's the next
like,
step.
Because that's
you would have
outright
to
a threat.
You would have to find out where I live.
Yeah.
Find out who I am.
Yeah.
Where I live.
Right.
Come to my house, depending on where you are.
Be in South
With a
America.
gallon of gasoline and then burn my house down.
Also,
Risking jail time.
now if they do it, it's premeditated.
Yeah, now they've already said it. But they've said it, so they're committed, really.
There's no
Yeah.
way he's gonna do that.
Are
He's
you
way
a
too
person?
lazy.
Like,
Yeah.
are you the type of person who you put up or shut up?
Yeah, like,
Do you do what you say you're gonna do?
dude, you said it. Now you got to prove it.
Yeah, person of your word, man
Right.
of your word.
So I'm surprised more people don't get banned in League of Legends. It seems like it's somewhat easy to get banned. And the game. I never play the game, but it has such a bad reputation for its player base.
To be honest, it's more about the fact that like if you get banned once, then repeatedly it will happen again because people can see when you don't when you're no, they can't see when you're like banned, but they can like if you're chat banned, you're only limited to five
Words and
words a game,
a whole game.
the whole game.
It's almost not even worth saying anything.
Right, or 5 lines of dialogue. You can
Okay.
chat 5 times during the game.
Gotcha.
So usually you use chat to communicate stuff. So you have to say like early on with one of your lines, like, "Hey, I'm chat banned. I can't communicate much." Blah blah blah. So if you say that, someone on your team half the time will intentionally try and provoke you.
Really?
Oh yeah, in order to get you to talk so that they can report you and have you banned.
On your own team.
Uh-huh.
This is like next level bad community shit.
They're the worst.
That's not like normal. That's bad for gaming. And gaming is bad always. But that's bad for that game. For gaming in general.
I mean, isn't it insane that this entire community exists?
That gaming community?
No, the gaming community exists because people love games and they love doing that stuff. But
Yeah.
the whole subculture of this being awful to other people because they're strangers and they're not real.
Yeah.
But they are very real.
It's definitely that kind of anonymity sickness, you know. It's
Yeah.
like I don't see them. Anything I say,
So-
therefore, is not has
That's
no.
not
I-
just gaming culture. I think
No, that's
that's
internet
all
culture.
internet culture.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I asked him, what's one of the worst things you've said to someone on the...
I never said anything really that bad.
You're not a shit talker?
Never. Never in my life have I said anything bad over the internet like that.
I think I have played one game of online Madden. That's it, period. I think that's it. My extent of online gaming.
Well, take it a step further. Just anything ever said to someone on the internet in any context. Facebook, Reddit, YouTube comments, instant messaging even.
Probably back in the days of instant messaging, I guarantee you there was an argument with a girlfriend or a fight with one of my friends that I probably
I guess that doesn't really fit.
Shit.
Yeah, that doesn't fit though, because that's no anonymity.
We're talking when I'm 14.
Well, all right.
But I don't think I have ever once posted on a YouTube video. I don't think I've ever tweeting has no anonymity for me because my Twitter handle is my name.
Do you tweet?
No. My last Facebook status, which doesn't count because that's my name.
True.
I don't know.
But Facebook, I don't know. Facebook, you get some bad shit back and forth.
You can get some bad shit back and forth, but I don't engage ever on Facebook.
Oh, you know what? What about political debates? You ever get involved? Like you see someone post something.
What, on Facebook?
Yeah,
God, no. I'll read them.
You'll read them and just kind
Sometimes I'll read them and I'll like something if I like a point that was made. Like after what happened in Vegas, there was a few, of course, gun control debates, and I liked a few things that I thought were.
But you just don't get involved.
Well put statement. Never get involved.
Yeah.
My Facebook regularly updates me on how long it's been since I have updated it.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't have an Instagram. I don't have Snapchat.
So you're kind of disengaged. Do you use Reddit?
I'm not a gamer. No, I don't.
No, but this is not gaming.
I use Reddit.
Social media especially is not gaming.
Very true. I do use Reddit, but I use Reddit like
just
sometimes when Google takes me to Reddit.
Okay. And you're what's it called? A lurker?
No, I'm a commenter.
No, not you. I'm asking what it's called when you don't comment.
Oh, yeah, a lurker. Just someone who reads the comments.
All right, so
that's it.
So me and Nicholi, we don't ever we're never anonymous. We never post, we never
I guess as douchey as it sounds is I'm one to put my name on it.
Yeah, no, if
I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna put my name on it.
But so we don't fit. But so Matt, you're an active commenter.
Yeah.
So you've gone into this anonymity kind of state where you say something that you don't see the person. Sure. So what's the worst thing you can think of that you said because of that you look back at now and like, I probably
should I find it?
Why, do you know where it is?
Huh? Well, it's all in your Reddit history.
It's all in my Reddit history.
And I think you have shown me before a few that were like, they weren't bad. They were more clever than like bad. You know, like it was probably fucked up what you said, but it was in context. It was like the right argument.
Talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic.
So for you, as far as video gaming, do you what video games do you play that would even have communities like that?
Well, really,
so I got to imagine Halo has whenever there's a good new Halo.
It hasn't been one in a few years now. I mean, Halo 5 wasn't necessarily really bad, but I mean, depending on who you ask, but it definitely didn't have any real following like nowadays, games that have followings with big online active communities are like the MOBAs, like Matt plays, what we're used to with League of Legends. Call of Duty still has a pretty active user base with a big community. Battlefield, some of the first-person shooters. The only game I ever engaged in with a community like that on any real level was this game, Destiny, that Matt and me play a little bit now with the sequel, but... I was really, really engaged with.
You're talking about with the original.
The original,
because the new game that came out is Destiny 2, correct?
Yeah, just came out a few months ago.
So it's all
right. So I got really engaged in that community. I got first time really, and got in a clan and all that. Got really into this competitive mode where you play on the weekends, and it's like an elimination game mode called Trials, and that really kind of had me hooked. So
Trials is so bad now.
Yeah, it's not what it was. They really screwed up a lot of the things about the game that I really liked, which is really disappointing. Things that worked great in the game, like that arguably they did better than any other game, in this genre of first-person shooters. And they totally sabotaged to just kind of make it more homogenized and just nothing unique about it.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, I got in this community, but I never engaged on that level. I made friends with the people I played with. I never played with people I didn't really know, and if I did, there wasn't much I can really think of only 2 times I ever had to come back and forth with someone I didn't know, and that one of the times was like the one I just told you.
Yeah.
So
that's
just
great. I cannot believe that you dedicated that much time.
It was I look back on it, it was kind of funny, but I kind of am embarrassed that I took it so personally, because I do get hate mail sometimes, but it never bothered me ever.
Yeah,
it's just funny. It's like,
you just see like,
please, dude,
eat a dick. I don't care about any of it.
And I committed time to get good at this game, to be good at Destiny, but it's just something I'm not naturally good at. Okay. So I have a pretty strong ceiling of how good I'll get, no matter how much time I invest. Gotcha. So, I've kind of accepted that,
like a white kid playing basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be, and I'm, short and all that. Yeah. So if I play bad, what can I say? Like, it's not my fault. I'm trying. I just fucking suck sometimes. So I never take it personally.
It's like you saw Woody Harrelson in that movie from 100 years ago.
He was great in that movie.
Yeah, but he hit the ceiling. It's a terrible example.
Yeah, it is, because he was like the better player.
He wasn't better. But
he wasn't better?
His fundamentals were better.
Yeah, well, he's white.
God, I love that movie. I really enjoy White Man Can't Jump.
It's a good movie. You going to see LBJ?
No.
There's a new one with Woody Harrelson playing...
Lyndon B. Johnson? I had no idea.
Oh, you didn't know about it? It's a Carl Reiner movie. It's
really?
Yeah.
I might actually
coming out pretty soon. It's getting really, really great reviews. Anyway. Sorry for the digression.
So what's your
my worst Reddit comment?
Yeah.
The worst one is not the most downvoted one. The most downvoted one was just me expressing an opinion.
What was the opinion?
It was actually a microtransaction opinion on the gaming subreddit. Not the place to... Not my crowd. But I think the worst thing I said to someone was in a much smaller thread. And it was about trypophobia. The reason you cock your head to the side is because it's not a real thing.
Oh, okay.
It is a proposed phobia based on the fear of small, close holes. Yeah, a really, really dumb, stupid thing. And the reason it was posted, I can't remember why, but... in it, I said, this is not a real thing. What are we talking about? Why is this...
Right.
Why is this a thing? And then someone responded to me. She was a social worker, and she said, you don't really have a say in what's a phobia or not. And I was like, well, I do. I mean, look up triskaidekaphobia or, arachnophobia. You'll find hundreds of medical studies and journals dedicated to all of these different types of phobias and treatments and observations from tests. And if you look up trypophobia, you don't find any of that because it's not a real thing. It's just something that people saw on the internet and it looked unsettling, so they said that's a phobia now and it triggers me. That's what it was. It was a thread about triggering. And someone had a problem. Someone was triggered at their college campus from trypophobia because someone was wearing a dress that had small polka dots all over it.
Gotcha.
And so now clothes with small polka dots were on the list of non-recommended items for the
school. Yeah,
right.
You can't wear that. That could possibly trigger someone. We can't.
It's a triggering mechanism.
So
and I said this is not a real. This is not a thing.
Of course not.
Someone's is they want to feel special and different and they. This is unsettling to them, and they can't be around anything unsettling, and they can't have that. So they said it's a phobia, and now it's banned.
Right.
And she said, again, you don't get to say that. It's science. You just because you Googled something doesn't mean you. And this was way back when I was a construction worker. And she says, I know a little bit more about this. Okay, I've consulted the DSM. I'm a social worker. You're a construction worker. And so I said, okay, hold the fuck on.
There was no way it was in the DSM, by the way. No way.
I said, hold the fuck on, you twat. Go to the DSM right now, screenshot a picture of trypophobia, and post it on here, and I will post a picture of myself naked. I will do whatever you fucking want on the internet, because that shit does not exist.
No.
You are an idiot. How dare you insult me for being a construction worker when you just said the stupidest shit I've ever fucking heard? How did you get your degree? Did they just let any old idiot be a social worker?
And they do.
And I said some really mean things, but that one only got 6 downvotes. The thing on gaming about microtransactions got like 150.
All right. Well, let me. All right. So I disagree with you on that microtransaction stuff, where you kind of bring in.
How did that whole conversation start? How did we get to where we started recording? We were talking about microtransactions. Matt was of the belief that it is the person playing the game hold on, at the time of the conversation, was of the stance that the person playing the video game or playing whatever playing the game is the responsible party for spending the money, and you were saying that no, there's some blame on these companies for making the games.
Yeah, well,
most of the blame is on the companies for making the games, which with the information you provided to me later, they are way more responsible than they are, but I do still feel like there is some degree of self-responsibility. And
I absolutely agree with you. What we had talked about was I had bought a bunch of games in the last few days, and I was kind of like bragging about it a little bit, and he asked me if I had bought in this one game, Shadow of War, which Lord of the Rings game, the first one was very critically acclaimed. So is this one, although there was some more negativity about it. So I asked if you bought that because I was excited about that game, and I said no, and mainly because this game was a little bit notorious for how kind of what's the word? Just how bad the predatory. Good, thank you. Microtransactions were in this game. Okay, it was a little hypocritical of me because I was talking about buying another game, Assassin's Creed Origins, which does something similar, although not quite as bad. But anyway, so that's how we got into that discussion. Anyway, the point you bring up here with this sort of triggered safe space, this whole kind of subculture that's grown out of like these college campuses and this really hyper progressive, social progressive movement, is where I fall much more into that Randian self-responsibility philosophy that you are kind of talking about with the microtransactions. This is a point where this type of people need to be kind of the foundation of it is like people need to they need to treat me in a way that my well-being is not my own responsibility. People have the responsibility to act in a way around me that could not possibly offend me. It's the onus is not on me to not be offended or not to be scared by stupid little like nothing polka dots or costumes that are Native American or language that some people find offensive. So instead of it being my responsibility that if I'm offended I take action and I handle myself as an adult that can deal with some slight
annoyance,
some slight frustration tolerance, even the slightest bit, and instead it's the collective society as a whole needs to change their behavior so that I never have to encounter anything that provides the slightest discomfort, and so on that level I agree with that philosophy that you're kind of using on this other thing, and in this way it's like a victim Olympics where it's like who can describe the most obscure kind of most nonsensical fear that everyone needs to be kind of aware of.
Tiny holes.
Tiny holes.
I have a fear of like not staying at home and getting money delivered to me every day.
Yes, so people need to do that now,
and it has to happen, or else I'll be triggered.
Yeah, you can't have that.
Uncomfortable.
You're in your safe space.
And I'm sure. Are you of the same opinion? I mean,
what
that it is not society's. It is not society's job to make the individual comfortable.
Yes. You're being offended.
Society. You're
not
being
responsible
offended. Society doesn't give a fuck.
No. Nor should it.
Nor should it, because that's...
It's not society. Society shouldn't adjust itself for your own sake. And now, look...
I don't know. Society does adjust, though, so that means
does.
that it should adjust sometimes.
And there's degrees to this, of course. Certain things that are over the top are certainly... Like, all right, so if you go to a veterans hospital... where there are plenty of people with PTSD, and you walk down the hall, start bouncing a really loud rubber ball in a hallway, and making this really loud popping noise that certainly will trigger these people with some severe emotional trauma. All right, so that's a place where you adjust because this has risen to another level.
Well, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it a step further than that, and I'm going to say there are certain things that like I don't think anybody should have to walk down the street and hear, racial slurs thrown at them. I don't think that.
Absolutely.
I don't think that. However, if that happens, then the person who's responsible, of course, is reprehensible.
Sure.
And I do think that there have to be limit. You can't just harass someone on the street. Yeah, but there is. I mean, that's harassment.
Happens.
Yeah. But that happens.
Right.
That unfortunately happens. That is a part of society that I don't think with any amount of social justice warrioring will ever go away.
No. So
you have to be able to deal with it.
Right.
And if you limit these things completely and you try to, then it's only going to make it worse when someone inevitably does use it.
Yes.
And you're not preparing yourself, you're not hardening up yourself at all.
Exactly.
To
handling that frustration
handle that frustration
or any sort of ideas that oppose your own. And look, we can even look at a way that this manifests itself negatively to the detriment of our country.
So that's why Destiny 2 isn't all that good?
That's why. So Destiny 2, I'm not that.
And I get why you're not getting Shadow of War.
Thank you. And let me be clear, I am a hypocrite. I did buy Assassin's Creed Origins. Oh, that's a good one.
Good.
Gamergate's another perfect example of this. You want to talk about it, or?
I mean, you are probably more educated on it than I am. I know of it, but I mean, I know the counterculture that exists because of it. I mean,
yeah. So Gamergate's kind of this.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. What is Gamergate?
So, even I'm not that familiar with just like how it started. So the kind of general idea of what happened was there was this really kind of there was this kind of feeling among gamers that game journalism was very unethical, and it was being
because every game was good. Every game has great. Okay.
Like any big game company,
so then we found out that all of these big game companies are paying these people to write the...
Yeah, or not so direct, but paying to advertise games and giving access and giving games early. And to a degree, there is certainly a conflict of interest present here, where a company like IGN, that so much of its success rides on companies like Activision and EA providing access, providing game codes, and buying advertising space. Most importantly, which is really that's way more important than the other things. So they're really kind of there's definitely a conflict of interest that they are really motivated to call Call of Duty really good, as long as there is no real, if the game is totally broken. Like with Assassin's Creed Unity is probably a good example. There's a very big game from a very big company. And it was broken. They said it's broken, so you'll get a legit review in that instance. But when you get a game like Call of Duty that is good every year, it's totally unchanged, totally uncreative, with all the worst industry practices of loot boxes and all that, microtransactions, they'll still call them great games and give them tens and not really tens, but 9s out of 10. And it's pretty clear that there is some bias happening there, which to an extent exists in all media. But there was sort of the kind of popular narrative that had been floating around the gaming community for a while. So what ended up happening was this woman called Sui Park was or not Sui Park. She was another feminist.
Zoe Quinn.
Zoe Quinn. She was, but not her. She wasn't the actual developer, right? She was just the journalist.
No, the journalist was Nathan Grayson.
Okay. I'm very fuzzy on the. It was something like
essentially what happened was, someone wrote a
review of this independent game.
A review of this independent game, and then users started accusing her of an unethical relationship with a journalist.
Right.
And then there was like a campaign of harassment against her.
And it had something to do with like the guy, they had been in a relationship, and they had this other friend who they were roommates with for a while, and they got this great review on this game. Basically, it was kind of silly. It wasn't really a big story. It was like perhaps there had been this conflict of interest in this case, but it was very small scale, very low stakes. But it really kind of ignited this trend of gamers harassing women and really saying just terrible things to kind of perceived feminists in games that are...
It was almost like a takeover of the thing. It was almost like a takeover of the... A lot of the movement gained a lot of popularity from the fact that a lot of people believed that at the core what they were fighting against was this close relationship between developers and game reviewers.
Yeah.
But as most things happen, it sort of got taken over by this subculture that still had a pretty big part of the culture.
Absolutely.
That just turned into harassment and attacking women.
Yeah.
Which is of course terrible.
Oh, disgusting.
And it's a horrible thing.
Yeah.
But And that I think is the biggest, not the biggest failure, of course. The biggest failure was that it let it get as far as it was, that people were getting harassed and rape threats.
Yeah.
Internet loves that.
Yeah.
Internet loves the worst thing you can say.
Yeah.
While still being anonymous.
Yeah, and kind of the worst, most vile opinions that you can hold, and the kind of your fringe beliefs that you wouldn't never normally say.
I mean, you got called dog shit boy.
You did?
True.
By like a 13-year-old.
Really?
Yeah. That's true.
I mean, he had a point, but still.
What point was that? What point was that, David?
A boy, you're a boy.
Oh, that's true.
And dog shit.
All right.
Anyway, so
Gamergate is interesting and all. Let's talk about video games. What is something that you see in the video game culture since you've been playing for as long as you have that you do and don't like?
Well, very much a part of what we were also talking about with the safe spaces, the trigger, the social justice, were very much based in that philosophy. That is very much part of gaming right now. You look at companies like IGN and Kotaku and what's the really progressive one? Kotaku is very progressive. But there's another one too. Fuck it, I forgot. Kotaku, I'll put in as the stand-in. And that's like these companies now kind of submit to this way of thinking with very little nuance and it, it's all right. I'll give you an example. Mass Effect Andromeda, a new game came out. A game I was very excited about, which was unfortunately very bad. Had a character in it that you walk up to, and it was just this side character, and they go on. You say hello, and they go on to tell you that they moved to the Andromeda galaxy and have decided to become a woman. They were a man before, now they're a woman.
Okay.
And it was just like this.
Does
really
that matter at all for the character at all?
No, it had no. I mean, whenever you walked up to a transgender person, do they immediately tell you that they are transgender?
No,
and
of course not.
Yeah, so it was just this really forced diversity, really missing the point of how a progressive, socially forward-thinking type of character would act with multi dimensions, and it was this kind of very forced diversity, forced inclusion to appease a very small sect of people that have a very poorly defined set of goals and how they wish to view entertainment as a whole, because it extends to other forms of media. So I don't like that aspect of gaming, and I also don't like the rampant misogyny that can't look at these ideas with any level of nuance and totally think that any woman that says anything is a cunt that needs to go back to the kitchen. And they say that shit because they're very immature. Even if they're not 13, they act like they're 13, and they have no ability to hold two ideas at once that are not perfectly aligned. And it's very disappointing, and I hate them.
However, on the other side of the spectrum, I pulled up, and this is one of my favorite things that came out in the past couple of years. A game called Mafia 3 came out.
You like the game?
I loved Mafia 3, but I loved more what they did at the beginning of the game. This is the disclaimer from the opening of the game. Mafia 3 takes place in a fictionalized version of the American South in 1968. We sought to create an authentic and immersive experience that captures this very turbulent time and place, including depictions of racism. We find the racist beliefs, language, and behaviors of some of the characters in the game abhorrent, but believe it is vital to include these depictions in order to tell Lincoln Clay's story. Most importantly, we felt that to not include this very real and shameful part of our past would have been offensive to the millions who faced and still face bigotry, racism, discrimination, prejudice, and racism in all its forms. Yeah. Hangar 13. One of my favorite things that has ever been included in a type of game. And when you play Mafia 3, you're playing a black man in the South in Louisiana in 1968. Yeah. It is a turbulent game. It is, you hear a lot of fucked up shit. You get called the N-word a lot.
Imagine how much more offensive it would be if they didn't put that in and they pretended like 60s, Southern 60s as a black man, Jim Crow was great, and black men had a great time.
Exactly. And it's a...
And that point is lost on these people that read that disclaimer and say, oh, I don't buy that.
Yeah, I don't have to hear that word.
No, we can't have the word... I won't say it, but...
You can say it.
Nick.
Because
Nick is terribly offensive, and by its own saying, context is totally unimportant. Yeah. They're the people who want Huckleberry Finn to be censored to... Anyway, and Anita Sarkeesian, very famous feminist YouTuber, talks about how games are all misogynistic and terrible. And
I don't know her at all.
I'm surprised you don't.
I have no idea who that is.
She's a big deal online with a lot of... I guess it's maybe... I mean, no, she's a big deal. Well, the reason I bring her up is because her and... What was the other one that you mentioned?
Zoe Quinn.
I think it was her. They both testified at the UN talking about harassment online and how we needed to... And they were taken very seriously. They were welcomed in, heard by most of these world's countries' leaders, or at least ambassadors. And so they talked about harassment online and how to address harassment online, which is terrible. What we needed to do was have some really strict censorship laws that didn't allow people to say certain things because, they could, they're harassment and people should be arrested, and we should have laws to censor speech.
Censorship has always worked out well throughout history.
I mean, this country's built on a healthy level of censorship.
I think the easiest way to solve this is if people had to put their real names.
Well, I don't think that would solve specifically. I think that would solve some of the...
If people knew that when I call
the harassment would be, maybe
a fucking asshole and you should go kill yourself because you didn't go 30 for 5 on that last round of Destiny, and you're a piece of fucking trash. But now I know that you are Mike Smith, who lives at such and such road in Kentucky Place. Like, am I ever really gonna go there? No, of course not.
But someone might.
Someone might. And all it takes is that one story where it's like, did you hear what happened to Mike Smith? Like,
a guy drove from Indiana to blow his fucking brains out.
Yeah, he told this guy to go kill himself because, he got like 2 less kills than you're supposed to on the round of Call of Duty because I'm an old fucking man. And
Call of Duty is played every day.
No, I'm just saying I sound like an old man saying it like that.
That's all you know.
Like a round of Call of Duty.
In my day.
Yeah, like I'm talking about golf. But he said go kill yourself. So this guy drove to his house and then fucking somehow rigged it that he killed him, and then he didn't die right away, and then killed himself right in front of this guy, so he knows everything you did was wrong.
I don't think that would necessarily solve the problem. I think this goes a little bit deeper, and it kind of.
I think it would be a step.
It would help. For sure, it would help. And
because I really think that a lot of this. Think about I've ever heard of the term of a telephone tough guy, somebody who's like a tough guy over the phone. Because I work in an industry. I work in the construction industry, so you get guys who are buying and selling stuff all the time. You're talking about big jobs, like as far as like a lot of money sometimes is being discussed.
Sure.
And there are people who are try to be intimidating when they are over the phone.
Sure.
I think you get that luxury because you are not in front of the person. Now, of course, you're not going to be in front of the person you're playing video games with, but if I do know who you really are.
Yeah, it adds a level of ownership to what you say. Just on a fundamental level.
And that's true, but also at the same time, that, unfortunately, it would never work. I mean, it would never realistically work. Because, I mean, if I didn't know that, then any stalker or creep who wants to find out where someone lives online is instantly. If I'm a rapist and I know where Sarah Jones lives, it's a good thing she just commented on that do-it-yourself garden post.
Yeah. And also, you look at a website like Reddit, which to me is like the only social media website that has any value of any kind to any like Facebook.
Does Reddit have multiple points of view?
Yes, very much so. And the anonymity of the posters is part of it's sort of like the idealized, most pure form of democratization of ideas, where ideas are voted on based on their merit, and the person who is saying the idea is totally removed from the equation.
It's the words, it's not what's being said. And
ideas reign supreme.
It's the words, but it's also where the words are.
How do you mean?
I mean, if you're posting something in a like-minded community, of course you're going to get the upvotes you want. But if you take that same post and you put it on the Donald, you're going to get banned.
Even more upvotes. Oh, yeah, no.
It depends on your. It completely is dependent on your audience, and it is very. I don't want to use the term circle jerk. But it sort of is. Everybody's
certainly
to your echo chamber.
Certainly insular. There's definitely an insular level to it. It's echo chamber,
echo chamber, and dare I say it, a safe space for your ideas.
Very good. And you have a point. There's some merit to that. And there's no doubt Reddit has its problems in that sense. Nevertheless, I think it is the best we have. I don't think there is a better example.
I love Reddit.
Yeah.
I love Reddit, don't get me wrong.
Right.
And of its communities, I visit several different communities.
Yeah, and some are great.
Yeah.
Like you get the Donalds and I'm not going to say
Fat People Shame.
Or Fat People Shame is terrible. I'm trying to think of what's one on the left that really I find... Like I
trees.
Like trees. I like politics. Like our politics is very liberal, but I like it because I agree. So, even late-stage capitalism, which I think is... I'll give you our socialism. Okay. I guess I don't have to say R, right? I guess...
It's fine, yeah.
Socialism, so, while I agree with a lot of the points, I think they do go a step too far, and I do think that they ban you immediately if you bring up any conflicting argument. Well, hey, this might not be right because of this. Banned, Sorry.
Oh, jeez, Dave.
I fucked up.
Man.
I'm so sorry.
Trying to do a podcast.
Yeah, I know.
Trying to do a goddamn podcast. All right, so what are some of the video game communities that you do like? For you, Matt, because earlier you said Call of Duty is extremely toxic and League is extremely toxic. Are there any video game communities that are not extremely toxic?
Extremely toxic? Yeah, I don't think the Destiny community is overly toxic.
No.
I think generally everybody playing Destiny is fairly good. And
but isn't the raid, it's something that's like...
Yeah.
That's a pretty long...
The raid is a long and arduous process, but you're usually 9 times out of 10 doing the raid with 5 people that you know.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And even in like introduced new systems now that allow for like people to get match made in to an extent, but it's very limited. so that like you can play with people you don't necessarily know, but you'd play with a full group of 4 people or 5 people, so they know each other and they'll help you, guide you through. And the raid kind of takes these mechanics from old MMOs, which were these very large social games that people like World of Warcraft, and brings those mechanics to a first-person shooter, and like brings that teamwork and that sense of complex mechanics that really kind of create a sense of accomplishment by beating it.
And that's why it's one of the communities that I really like now. Because after coming from League, I didn't want another toxic community. I couldn't deal with it.
Right. So it is definitely good.
Very quick, fun games like PlayerUnknown's Battleground or Fortnite.
I've heard Battlegrounds is very toxic, though.
Battlegrounds is not really that toxic.
No?
Battlegrounds is more... There is toxicity in Battlegrounds, but at the same time, it's completely avoidable should you want it to be. And at the same... And, like, if you hear someone being toxic to you, you're probably dead. Like, like it doesn't matter because it's over anyway. And the games are so short that, like... It really doesn't matter if someone's being a dick because you're probably going to die in 2 seconds anyway.
Right.
There's 100 people trying to kill you in Battlegrounds.
Right.
Same thing with Fortnite.
You play both? You play Battle Royale Fortnite? And...
I play Fortnite right now. I don't have a computer to play PUBG on.
Okay. Do you play the regular Fortnite game or the Battle Royale Fortnite? Like
the Battle Royale.
Okay. Because I know the regular game is like you have to pay for.
And it's awful.
Is it?
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad, but the Battle Royale is
great. By the way, how stupid is it? You have to pay for it because it's pre-release, because it's in pre-alpha or whatever.
I bought it.
Did you?
Yeah, I bought it back when it was alpha, and it was terrible. That's why I don't play it anymore.
But why not just wait for when it comes out? It's free and it's finished.
Yeah, but I wanted to try it out. It was only $30.
$30 for a game that's not done. That sucks.
I agree. Hey, I liked it. Fuck you.
Did you?
You get
said
$30
you like
off
it.
of the full version when it comes
That
out?
is the full version. I don't have to pay for the full version anymore.
The full version when it comes out is free.
Oh.
You get.
I paid to play it early.
So, like, essentially what game companies used to do is they used to have betas, and they still do, but so you would have a beta to, like, test your network. Can your network handle this many players? What kind of bugs are in the game?
What are the glitches?
Yeah, so you're kind of... What you were doing is essentially you were a QA tester.
Yeah, I'm a QA tester. But at the same time, when the
QA testers get paid.
When the game does come out, however, I am going to have almost everything in the game unlocked.
And I'm sure they'll give you some bonuses and stuff, you know, like extra things. They usually do.
I don't think you get any like loot crates or anything like that, but
really?
I have all of the characters unlocked, which you would have to buy normally. I have all of the weapons unlocked, all of, like the weapon cards and shit. So I don't have to like farm for any of that shit or anything.
That's a bonus, but
it's essentially like I didn't have to devote time into the game to get all that stuff. The problem is that the game is shit. So
which is a real problem.
But then again, I'm playing it in alpha, so I don't know if it's going to be shit by the time it comes out.
But see, I feel like with this specifically, you're combining two, like, so we were talking about anti-consumerist practices by video game companies earlier with like the microtransactions. Well, in this instance, you have two practices that are both very anti-consumer combined, where you have pre-release games getting released that where you're essentially a QA tester that's unpaid, but then you add on to that making people pay for a game that's pre-release, but that game will be free when it's done.
Granted, however, this I will still hold to my original argument on, which is this is not a system that's designed by the game companies to make you feel like you're gambling. This is
granted.
This is an alpha that you choose to pay for. Like me, if you're gullible and you choose to pay $30 for the game, you lose $30. That's what happens. It's an unfortunate thing, but I also wanted to try out the game earlier, and I thought it was going to be fun. It was a game that Seich and Al we're also planning on getting at the time, so I essentially bit the bullet to let them know whether or not it was going to be good when it came out. Jesus. And it wasn't.
And then the good part of the game, Battle Royale, is free.
Yeah.
It's one of these things for me. Like, they did it with another game, too. What was it called? Paragon.
I don't know.
It was like a MOBA, but like it was third-person action. Something like PS4.
That came out free to play? I thought that just made the Switch free to play.
No, it's free to play now. I played for it free, but when it came out, you had to pay like $100 for like a Founders Pack.
Is it
cool? I bought a bunch of. I went on a bit of a spending spree and bought a bunch of games over the last few days, and kind of excited. And you know, I've been slowly building up my collection of games that I over the past few years that I had at one point gotten rid of my entire collection of like 100.
Did you really?
Yeah, I sold every single game I owned. It was like 100 games, and I was so proud of my collection.
How much?
I remember you telling we having many discussions.
Yeah,
about your collection of video games.
It was wonderful.
Because they were just
a wall of games.
Because they were just sitting there collecting dust, right?
Well, you know, yes, absolutely. They had no value. I could trade them in, but you know, it's one of those things. I don't really collect things, but this was one thing where I don't know. I had a bit of a, I don't know. You know, why anyone collects anything. I just kind of had that sense of...
Yeah, the inclination.
Yeah.
100 games. Let's say...
So, yeah, how did you sell them? What method?
Went to GameStop, sold them all. Some of them I got like $2 for.
You got like 4 cents on the dollar.
For nothing.
Do you remember the exact total?
Altogether, it was, you know, like probably $600 or something.
For 100 games?
Yeah. It's maybe a little more than that.
Bullshit.
That's an average of $6 a game. GameStop's not coughing up that much dough.
It was pretty good. It was like $600, I want to say.
God damn.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were all in pristine condition too.
They were, and there were a lot of new games. You know, a lot of like $40. You know, I mean, not a lot because there's only like 1 or 2 ever of those.
Were there any from the 100 that you kept?
No, not one.
Like not even like Dark Souls?
Nothing.
So you got $600 in store credit.
No cash. I guess it must have been less because short cash they don't give you much, so it must have been less than that. But it wasn't insignificant. Like I got.
Why did you do that?
Now I'm gonna give you a guess as to why I would do that.
Drugs.
You got it. I don't know how you got that. First guess. How do you give me?
Wow.
Damn. No, yes, it was for
So
drugs.
have you started collecting again since you most recently?
So in sort of a symbolic rebuilding of my life, as seen through the lens of how many video games I own, which I think we can all agree is how anyone judges their, what point in life they're at. I have recollected a number of games, all for the new systems, and went on a spending spree the last few days, got a bunch of games, so I got Assassin's Creed and 3 Assassin's Creed games and a couple of RPGs. It's not.
Do you think that there's been... Alright, so... Number one, do you think there's ever been a game that's tried to take on these social issues? And number two, do you think there's ever been a game that was good and was also politically...
correct.
Not correct. No, not correct at all. I guess... Relevant. Yep. That's what I'm looking for.
Pretty much all major AAA games released now fall into the category of like... You know, these socially progressive, inclusive, politically... I will
bullshit.
Say, yeah, like...
If you ask me.
But they all do that. They know well enough now that they would get too much backlash if they did not. With the exception of things like Grand Theft Auto, which will always have you being able to beat up hookers and stuff like that, which has been a major target of a lot of these critics. But as far as you're asking, of these, like... obviously inclusive for its own sake, like that's what you're asking, are there good games that do that sort of obvious kind of it's hard for me even for me to think of an egregious example of, I don't think many games are hurt by this feminist kind of movement. What do you think, Matt? Can you think of games that are hurt by this?
Hurt by this? No.
Yeah.
I can think of games like I mentioned earlier with Mafia 3. Mm-hmm. It didn't tackle a feminist issue, but it definitely tackled a racial issue, and it didn't shy away from a race issue.
Right.
But then again, I don't think it was, like you said, a socially relevant game.
I don't think talking about race.
No, I think this game would definitely fall into provocative game, at least to an extent. Certainly,
I do, but I don't. I also, I'm not of the belief that it's a. I'm not of the belief that games do have the ability to be that way. Not the ability to be that way, but I don't think it's a game's place to be that way. You know, I don't think it. Sure, a game can have something to say, and sure, a game can have a message, and but I also just. Like, I'm here to play a video game, man. Like, tell me a story. That's great. And if your story has, social constructs woven into it, that's great. But at the end of the day, that's what it is, a story. I don't think a story is ever going to really have a dramatic impact or relevancy on those social constructs. Not the way, at least, like movies or television can, because those are just so much more widely accepted by the mainstream community. Gaming is a smaller community. It's a more niche community. It's made up usually of younger individuals who don't really have a sense or scope of the world. Of course, there are games from every age, but that's the major demographic. Is like,
I don't think that's so true anymore.
I mean, 14 to 30.
Yeah, and games are also a larger economically. They're a larger market than movies are at this point.
Economically, sure, but at the same time, that's because economically a game costs $60, where a movie ticket costs $10.
True.
I mean,
budgets are also much bigger for games, though. I mean, yeah, it's definitely skewed because of that. They're 6 times as expensive, so you would need 6 times as many people seeing a movie. That's true. But I think that's kind of an old way of thinking, that games are still niche, that games are not in a position that they can have as wide an appeal and as wide a politically motivated message of their story. To the extent that movies
they can have the messages. I just don't think the messages are as socially relevant, because they're not going to be as viewed by as many people. Gaming still doesn't have, even though it is a huge market, gaming still does not have the legitimacy that cinema or novels have.
True, yeah, they're kind of slowly getting there, right? It's moving in that direction, but they're not there yet.
Over time, people are still going to equate video game to... people are always going to equate video games to plumbers jumping on turtles and Grand Theft Auto. I always think that's going to be in the back of their... or at least the older generation's mind, until that generation dies out, or until the medium changes completely.
Well, I'll tell you, for me, as a person who came to games in their mid-20s, really, I didn't play games as a kid. I don't have any nostalgic connection to them. I only approached games because I saw that they had become this incredibly mature, in some instances, obviously not all, but, mature, really interactive way, a different way of telling a story. I think in a lot of ways, a video game, if done correctly, can have far more impact as a storytelling technique than movies can. Obviously, they're different animals, but I think games have a lot of value in that artistic sense. And to extend that to political messages, I think they're in a perfect position. Yeah, they still have a stigma, but I think that stigma is drastically reduced from what it was. And I think eventually... yeah, probably when the older generation dies and you have a new generation that comes in and has isn't kind of held back by those kind of old social stigmas, probably is true. But I think that at this point, games are certainly putting out social messages. Look at BioShock. And this is a good example to your point, Nicholi. So BioShock is a game that was very... it was praised for its kind of deeper political message, and it tackled... objectivism and this Randian stuff we had kind of been talking about earlier, and really had a mature approach to storytelling. I mean, that's debatable, but I think certainly...
I agree with that. BioShock was...
yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
But BioShock Infinite decided to tackle identity politics to a much greater extent, and they chose to really have this new dystopian world deal a lot more with the racial attitudes of the early 20th century America. And they wanted to really have this mature story that really kind of exposed this dystopian world and what these values really represented, with these horrible subservient positions for, like really racist attitudes. But because they wanted to also not offend anyone, they never used the word Nick in the game. And they had a scene in the game where you were left to throw a baseball at a black guy that in front of a crowd, and everyone was cheering because it was sort of like a torture for this person. And they didn't actually let you do it because the game didn't want to offend anyone by actually showing it.
Yeah, there was, and that was the thing in that game. That's why I left the game out, actually.
Yeah.
Because they give you a choice. Mm-hmm. You can choose left or right. You can choose to either throw the ball or not throw the ball. Either choice you make, the same result happens.
Yeah, and you can never actually throw.
You can't throw the ball.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I want to throw the ball. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying...
You would choose not to.
Of course I would choose not to.
Right, me too.
But also... then don't give me a choice
right.
if there is no choice. It's disingenuous.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to tackle these complex and important ideas of identity politics and racist attitudes, to totally castrate them by making all, not using any sensitive words or offensive words, and totally undercuts your entire point that this was this disgusting attitude that was created from this type of hyper-nationalistic world created society built. So it's a good example of your question. Are these games hurt by this type of identity politics being, artificially forced into games? And this is a good example of a game that from its first game was great in terms of its mature storytelling and was totally undercut by its third game because of this, at least to an extent. So I thought that I would throw that in there as an example. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we covered a good amount.
Yeah.
And I hope people enjoyed listening to it. I certainly enjoyed talking about it.
Me too. Nikolai, I think more than any of us.
He's enthralled.
This is my favorite episode of this show that we've done so far. Yeah. Absolutely.
We came in with a plan. We were going to talk about laziness. Mm-hmm. That went right out the window.
Yep.
It was too much work.
Thank
you. Thank you.
I guess that's maybe something we'll cover next time.
Yeah, if we get to it.
But until then, I've been Matt.
And I am still Dave.
I'm Nicholi.
Mm-hmm. And fuck our president.
Got Syndicate.
I'm sure you got...
We're giving you a lot of work, huh?
No, every episode's a lot of work, but
that's good.
It's just that this one's going to be boring. No,